you are in the best of your health and spirits. The topic for today's lecture is Environment and Health. The subtopics that we will cover today are Introduction, Water, which further includes safe and wholesome water, water requirement, uses of water, sources of water supply, water pollution, hardness of water. Introduction. The term environment implies all the external factors, living and non-living, material and non-material, which surround man. In its modern concept, environment includes not only the water, air and soil that form our environment, but also the social and economic conditions under which we live. For descriptive purposes, environment has been divided into three components, all closely related. First component, physical, water, air, soil, waste, radiation, etc. The second component includes biological components, that is plant and animal life, which includes bacteria, viruses, insects, rodents and animals. Social is the third component, which includes customs, culture, habits, income, etc. The key to man's health lies largely in his environment. In fact, much of man's ill health can be traced to adverse environmental factors such as water pollution, soil pollution, air pollution, poor housing conditions, presence of animal reservoirs and insect vectors, of diseases which pose a constant threat to man's health. Often, man is responsible for the pollution of his environment through urbanization, industrialization and other human activities. Therefore, the attainment of a healthy environment is becoming more and more complex. The term environmental sanitation is now being replaced by environmental health. Proper environmental health now requires the services of the public health qualified doctor, the epidemiologist, the public health engineer, the town planner, the sociologist, the economist and the health inspector. A purely medical or engineering approach by itself is no longer sufficient. A combined multidisciplinary program of action is needed to achieve a healthy environment. The purpose of environmental health is to create and maintain ecological conditions that will promote health and thus prevent disease. One of the essential public health care elements is safe drinking water and sanitation. Feces deposited near homes, contaminated drinking water, fish from polluted rivers and coastal waters, and agricultural produce fertilized with human waste are all health hazards. Water quantity is as important as water quality. Washing hands after defecation and before preparing food is of particular importance in reducing disease transmission, but without abundant water in or near home, hygiene becomes difficult or impossible. And today we do know the importance of hand sanitization. So it's very important that we do have water. And the request, because of the ongoing pandemic, please take care to switch off your taps while you are washing your hands so that we can save water and we do have supply of water in future. The lack of water supply and sanitation is the primary reason why diseases transmitted via feces are so common in developing countries. Two of the changes needed to achieve health for all are concerned with a healthy environment and healthy lifestyle and require initiative by the individual, the family, and the community. Moving on to our main topic, water. Much of the ill health which affects humanity, especially in the developing countries, can be traced to lack of safe and wholesome water supply. Water that is easily accessible, adequate in quantity, free from contamination, safe and readily available throughout the year. There can be no state of positive health and well-being without safe water. Water is not only a vital environmental factor to all forms of life, but it has also a great role to play in socio-economic development of human population. What is safe and wholesome water? Water intended for human consumption should be both safe and wholesome. This has been defined as water that is A. Free from pathogenic agents, B. Free from harmful chemical substances, C. Pleasant to the taste, that is, free from color and odor, D. Usable for domestic purposes. Safe and wholesome water is popularly also known as potable water. Water is said to be polluted or contaminated when it does not fulfill the above criteria. Water pollution is a growing hazard in many developing countries owing to human activity. Without ample and safe drinking water, we cannot provide health care to the community. Water requirement. How much water do we need? The basic physiological requirements for drinking water have been estimated at about 2 liters per head per day. This is just for survival. But from the standpoint of public health and improvement of the quality of life, water should be provided in adequate volume. It will help to reduce the incidence of many water-related diseases amongst the people most at risk. The consumption of water, however, depends upon climate conditions, standard of living and habits of the people. A daily supply of 150 to 200 liters per capita is considered as an adequate supply to meet the needs for all urban domestic purposes. In India, 40 liters of water supply per capita per day was the set target to be achieved in rural areas. So as we all know, as per the climatic conditions in Rajasthan, we require more amount of water. Whereas if you go to hilly areas, the consumption of water is reduced. So does the standard of living and habits of the people affect the water requirement. Moving on to the uses of water. The uses of water in a community are many and the requirements in quantity and quality are varied. Conventionally, it has been convenient and economical to provide a single water supply, sufficient in quantity to serve all uses and suitable in quality to meet drinking requirements, even though only a small fraction of the total water supply is actually used for drinking. The uses of water include: first, domestic use. On domestic front, water is required for drinking, cooking, washing and bathing, flushing of toilets, gardening, etc. Second, public purposes, cleaning streets, recreational purposes like swimming pools, public fountains and ornamental ponds, fire protection and public parks. Third, industrial purposes for processing and cooling. Fourth, agricultural purposes, irrigation. Fifth, power production from hydropower and steam power. Sixth, carrying away waste from all manner of establishments and institutions. Water is therefore an essential factor in the economic, social and cultural development of a community. It can eliminate diseases, promote rural development and improve quality of life. Sources of water supply. Water may be extracted for use from any one of a number of points in its movement through the hydrological cycle. The selection of a source requires professional advice. In general, water sources must conform to 2 criteria. A. The quantity must be sufficient to meet present and future requirements. B. The quality of water must be acceptable. There are 3 main sources of water: rain, surface water, which includes impounding reservoirs, rivers and streams, tanks, ponds and lakes. Third, groundwater, which includes shallow wells, deep wells and springs. We will take all these sources of water further. Rain. Rain is the prime source of all water. As you can see in this diagram, a part of the rain water sinks into the ground to form groundwater. Part of it evaporates back into the atmosphere and some runs off to form streams and rivers which flow ultimately into the sea. Some of the water in the soil is taken up by the plants and is evaporated in turn by the leaves. These events are spoken of as water cycle. Characteristics of rainwater. Rainwater is the purest water in nature. Physically, it is clear, bright and sparkling. Chemically, it is very soft water containing only traces of dissolved solids. Being soft, it has a corrosive action on lead pipes. Bacteriologically, rainwater from clean districts is free from pathogenic agents. Impurities. Rainwater tends to become impure as it passes through the atmosphere. It picks up suspended impurities from the atmosphere such as dust, soot, and microorganisms and gases such as carbon dioxide, nitrogen, oxygen, and ammonia. Gaseous sulfur and nitrogen oxides are emitted from power plants that use fossil fuels. These gases react with atmospheric water, forming dilute solution of sulfuric and nitric acid. The precipitation of these acids, also known as acid rain, has begun to have serious impacts on surface water quality and on plants, etc. There are very few places in the world like Gibraltar which depend upon rain as a source of water supply. Moving ahead with the second source of water supply, that is surface water. Surface water originates from rainwater. It is the main source of water supply in many areas. Examples of surface water include rivers, tanks, lakes, man-made reservoirs and seawater. Surface water is prone to contamination from human and animal sources. As such, it is never safe for human consumption unless subjected to sanitary protection and purification before use. The vast majority of Indian cities and towns depend on surface water resources, which are impounding reservoirs, rivers and streams, tanks, ponds and lakes. In general, surface water supplies possess a high probability of organic, bacterial and viral contamination. Let's go ahead with further subclassification of subsurface water sources of supply. First, impounding reservoirs. These are artificial lakes constructed usually of earthwork in which large quantities of surface water is stored. Dams built across rivers and mountain streams also provide large reserves of surface water. Cities such as Mumbai, Chennai and Nagpur derive their water supply from impounding reservoirs. One disadvantage of storing water for long periods in reservoirs is the growth of algae and other microscopic organisms which impart bad taste and odors to water. Characteristics include impounding reservoirs usually furnish a fairly good quality of water. The water is usually clear, palatable and ranks next to rainwater in purity. If the surrounding hills are covered with peat, the water may acquire a brownish coloration. The water is usually soft and considered to be free of pathogenic organisms. Second, rivers. Many rivers furnish a dependable supply of water. Cities such as Delhi, Kolkata and Allahabad rely on river water for their needs. The chief drawback of river water is that it is always grossly polluted and is quite unfit for drinking without treatment. Characteristics: river water is turbid during rainy season. It may be clear in other seasons. Clarity of water is no guarantee that the river water is safe for drinking. River water contains dissolved and suspended impurities of all kinds. The bacterial count, including the human intestinal organisms, may be very high. Self-purification of rivers. Certain amount of self-purification does occur in river water by natural sources of purification such as dilution, sedimentation, aeration, oxidation, sunlight, plant and animal life. But these agencies are not sufficient to render the water potable. River water needs purification before it can be used for drinking purposes. Moving ahead with the third surface water source, tanks. Tanks are large excavations in which surface water is stored. They are an important source of water supply in some Indian villages. Tanks are recipients of contamination of all sorts. Tanks are often used for washing of clothes, cattle, humans, cooking pots. Children use it for swimming and there may be regular defecation around the edges which will be washed into the tank at the next rains. Tanks are thus subjected to unlimited possibilities of contamination and are highly dangerous as a source of drinking water even at the best of times. Improvement of tanks. A certain amount of natural purification does take place in tank water because of storage, oxidation and other agencies, but these are not sufficient to render the water safe. Groundwater. Rainwater percolating into ground constitutes groundwater. Water used by humans comes mainly from land. It is now realized that there is a limit to groundwater in the world. We should withdraw only quantities of water that can be renewed. Groundwater is the cheapest and most practical means of providing water to small communities. Groundwater is superior to surface water because the ground itself provides an effective filtering agent. The advantages of groundwater are: first, it is likely to be free from pathogenic agents. Second, it usually requires no treatment. Third, the supply is likely to be certain even during dry season. And fourth, it is less subject to contamination than surface water. The disadvantages are: first, it is high in mineral content, example, salts of calcium and magnesium which render the water hard. Second, it requires pumping or some arrangement to lift the water. The usual groundwater sources are wells and springs. Wells have been further classified into shallow and deep wells, dug and tube wells. Wells. Traditionally, wells are an important source of water supply. Even today, they are an important source of water supply in many communities. Technically, wells are of two kinds, shallow and deep. As you can see in the diagram, a shallow well taps subsoil water, that is, the water from above the first impervious layer in the ground. They yield limited quantities of water, and the water is notoriously liable to pollution unless care is taken in well construction. Second, deep wells. A deep well is one which taps water from the water-bearing stratum below the first impervious layer in the ground. Deep wells are usually machine dug and may be several hundred meters deep. Deep wells furnish the safest water and are often the most satisfactory sources of water supply. As you can see here, this is the first impervious strata and the shallow well is well above it, whereas on the other hand, a deep well is found below the first impervious strata and therefore is dug deep. What are the differences between a shallow well and a deep well? Definition of a shallow well: it taps water from above the first impervious layer, as we have seen in the diagram, whereas a deep well taps the water from below the first impervious layer. The chemical quality of a shallow well is moderately hard, whereas it is much hard for a deep well. Meteorological quality: the shallow wells are often grossly contaminated, whereas a deep well taps purer water. And the reason behind this is a shallow well is very near to the ground and it has chances of getting contaminated. Heat. A shallow well usually goes dry in summer. On the other hand, a deep well provides a source of constant supply. For your knowledge, most of the wells in India are of the shallow type. Moving ahead to tube wells. Tube wells are successful as a source of drinking water in many parts of India. They yield water which is meteorologically safe and are also cheap in comparison to other sources of supply. Shallow tube wells or driven wells have become the largest individual source of water supply to the rural communities. Deep tube wells or bored wells are sunk by drilling through successive substrata of gravel or rock until a suitable supply of groundwater is located. This type of wells, although costly to construct and to operate, are in many ways the ideal supply. Chandigarh, the capital of Punjab, derives its entire water supply from tube wells. Springs. When groundwater comes to the surface and flows freely under natural pressure, it is called a spring. Springs may be of two types, shallow springs and deep springs. Shallow springs dry up quickly during summer months, whereas deep springs do not show seasonal fluctuations in the flow of water. In some geographic areas, springs constitute an important source of water. Springs are simpler to exploit as no pumping is needed to bring the water to the surface. Springs are exposed to contamination. Well-built protective structures are necessary to safeguard water quality. Can you guess a natural spring in any area? Moving ahead to water pollution. Pure, uncontaminated water does not occur in nature. It contains impurities of various types, natural and man-made. Natural impurities are not essentially dangerous. These comprise dissolved gases, example nitrogen, carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, etc., which may be picked up during rainfall, and dissolved minerals, example salts of calcium, magnesium, sodium, etc., which are natural constituents of water following its contact with soil, and suspended impurities, example clay, silt, sand and mud, and microscopic organisms. These impurities are derived from the atmosphere, catchment area and the soil. A more serious aspect of water pollution is that caused by human activity, urbanization and industrialization. The sources of pollution resulting from these are A. Sewage, which contains decomposable organic matter and pathogenic agents. B. Industrial and trade waste, which contains toxic agents ranging from metal salts to complex synthetic organic chemicals. C. Agricultural pollutants, which comprise fertilizers and pesticides. And D. Physical pollutants, that is, heat, thermal pollution and radioactive substances. The indicators of pollution include the amount of total suspended solid biochemical oxygen demand at 20 degrees Celsius, concentration of chloride, nitrogen, and phosphorus, and absence of dissolved oxygen. Even if the source of water supply and its treatment are of high standards, water pollution may still occur, as often happens due to corrosion of pipelines, leaky joints, and cross connections between water supply pipes and sewage drainage pipes. What are water-related diseases? Man's health may be affected by the ingestion of contaminated water either directly or through food, and by the use of contaminated water for purpose of personal hygiene and recreation. The term water-related diseases includes the classical water-borne diseases. Developing countries carry a heavy burden of water-related diseases the heaviest being the diarrheal diseases. Water-related diseases may be classified as follows: biological and chemical. Biological water-borne diseases. First, those caused by the presence of an infective agent. Example, viral, which includes viral hepatitis A, hepatitis E, poliomyelitis, rotavirus diarrhea in infants. Bacterial, typhoid and paratyphoid fever, bacillary dysentery, cholera, protozoal, amoebiasis and gardarosis. Elemental, roundworm, threadworm, Hydes disease, leptospiral, Wales disease. Those due to the presence of an aquatic host, snail, which causes schistosomiasis, and cyclops, which may cause guinea worm, fish tapeworm. Chemical waterborne diseases. Chemical pollutants of diverse nature derived from industrial and agricultural waste are increasingly finding their way into public water supplies. These pollutants include detergent solvents, cyanides, heavy metals, minerals and organic acids, nitrogenous substances, bleaching agents, dyes, pigments, sulfides, ammonia, toxic and biocidal organic compounds of great variety. Chemical pollutants may affect man's health not only directly but also indirectly by accumulating in aquatic life, example fish, used as human food. The present concern about chemical pollutants in water relates not so much as to their acute toxic effects on human health as to the possible long-term effects of low-level exposure, which are often non-specific and difficult to detect. Further, some of the new pollutants are not easily removed by conventional water treatment or purification processes. In many developed countries, where waterborne communicable diseases have virtually disappeared, more attention is now being paid to chemical pollution. In addition to the above, water is associated with the following. First, dental health. The presence of fluoride at about 1 mg per liter in drinking water is known to protect against dental caries, but high levels of fluoride cause mottling of the dental enamel, that is, lead to fluorosis. Cyanosis in infants. High nitrate content of water is associated with methemoglobinemia. This is a rare occurrence but may occur when surface water from farmland treated with a fertilizer gain access to the water supply. Cardiovascular diseases. Hardness of water appears to have a beneficial effect against cardiovascular diseases. Some diseases are transmitted because of inadequate use of water, like trachoma, conjunctivitis, escheriasis, scabies. And finally, some diseases are related to the disease-carrying insects breeding in or near water, like malaria, filaria, arboviruses, African trypanosomiasis. While pollution seems to be an inevitable consequence of modern industrial technology, the problem now is to determine the level of pollution that permits economic and social development without presenting hazards to health. The evaluation of the health effects of environmental pollutants is currently being carried out as part of the World Health Organization Environmental Health Criteria Program. Moving on to the last topic, hardness of water. What do you mean by hardness of water? It is defined as soap-destroying power of water. The causes behind it are calcium carbonate, magnesium bicarbonate, calcium sulfate, magnesium sulfate. Classification of hardness. Carbonate hardness or temporary hardness is due to the presence of calcium and magnesium carbonates. It is called as temporary because it can be easily removed. Non-carbonate hardness or permanent hardness is due to calcium and magnesium sulfates, chlorides and nitrates. Hardness of water is expressed in terms of milliequivalents per liter. Classification of hard water and what are the levels of hardness. Soft water less than 1, moderately hard 1 to 3, hard water 3 to 6, very hard water over 6. Drinking water should be moderately hard water, that is 1 to 3 milliequivalent per liter. What are the disadvantages of hard water? It consumes more soaps and detergents. When hard water is heated, the carbonates get precipitated and bring about flurry or scaling of boilers, leading to increased fuel consumption, loss of efficiency, and sometimes boiler explosions. Next, adversely affects cooking by altering its color and appearance. Fabrics washed with hard water do not have a long life. And lastly, it is unsuited in many industrial processes and gives rise to economic losses. It shortens the lines of pipes and fixtures. How do you remove this hardness? There are various methods. The first one is boiling. It removes temporary hardness by expelling carbon dioxide and precipitating the insoluble calcium carbonate. Second, addition of lime. It again removes temporary hardness by absorbing the carbon dioxide and precipitating the insoluble calcium carbonate. Third, addition of sodium carbonate. It removes both temporary and permanent hardness. Permuted process, also called as the base exchange process, is a special process to remove hardness of water. It removes both temporary and permanent hardness. What is permuted? Sodium permuted is a complex compound of sodium, aluminium and silica. When hard water is passed through the permuted, sodium permuted is a complex compound of sodium, aluminium and silica. When hard water is passed through the permuted, the calcium and magnesium ions which are present in the water are entirely removed by base exchange with the sodium present in the compound, and the sodium permuted is finally converted to calcium and magnesium permuted. With this, I end the topic for today. Hope you understood the introductory part on water. We'll continue further, and for more, refer your books. Thank you.